The vast majority of RV buyers make their purchasing decisions almost completely on their budget, the floor plan, and features. But if you look a little closer, there are some big factors that you might want to consider. It's buying season, and I'm Jason Epperson. This is RV Miles, and today I want to give you some serious things to consider before making your RV buying choice, things that a lot of RV buyers overlook. Welcome back, everybody. We did a version of this video a few years ago, but technologies have changed and it was time to update it. So let's jump right in with the biggest one, build quality. Build quality is a big concern for many people, or at least they say it is. But when they go to pull the trigger on a new or used unit, believe it or not, a lot of people ignore build quality. They get enamored with a floor plan and they overlook things they shouldn't. I get it. It can be hard to tell how well an RV is built. A lot of them look the same. Some brands have great slides and terrible cabinetry. Some brands are good one model year and bad the next. It's not even something you can really base on brand reputation, as lots of brands build units for all sorts of different price levels, and quality can vary depending on the individual people that built that unit on a given day. Most RVs in the same price range are built with similar methods. So it's really often down to the individual unit. So the number one thing I recommend for any RV buyer is I highly recommend you get an inspection on any new or used RV when purchasing. Similar to a home inspector, certified RV inspectors will spend hours going over every little detail about your unit. So you can make sure anything that isn't up to snuff can get repaired before you accept delivery. RVs aren't built like automobiles. You wouldn't buy a home without a home inspector. It's a very similar thing. There's been an explosion of new RV inspectors out there. And just like your mechanic, they can vary in quality too. So try to get a recommendation from someone or read Google reviews of your inspector. Talk to them, make sure you get a good feel about them. Beyond that, though, during the buying process, you can also look for features that will last longer, like solid wood cabinetry, ceramic toilets, solid surface countertops are a really big one for me. Look under the bed and in the pass-through storage to see how it's really built. Fiberglass trailers are generally built with welded aluminum framing, while metal-sided trailers are usually using a wood structure. Those things aren't deal breakers, but they should inform the buying decision. Probably the most overlooked spec on an RV is the cargo carrying capacity. What good is that giant refrigerator and that cavernous storage if you don't have the ability to use it because you can't carry enough weight? I've seen very large fifth wheels with small cargo carrying capacities, 1,200 pounds or less. And then I've seen smaller travel trailers that can carry 3,000 pounds or more. Cargo carrying capacity is how much weight you can add to the RV. It's the difference between the unloaded vehicle weight and its max allowable weight, the gross vehicle weight rating, or GVWR. It can also tell you a thing or two about construction quality. A strong frame and a heavier duty axle are going to be able to carry more weight. And if an RV has too small of a cargo carrying capacity, it can mean that there's just too much weight riding on that frame full time without you putting your stuff in it. Generally, in a larger trailer, I'm looking for at least 2,500 pounds of cargo carrying capacity. Most large motorhomes are going to be able to carry more than that. Smaller RVs like vans and truck campers are going to be more limited, but you still need to make sure that you can carry your stuff. And you have to check on each and every unit. Don't just look at the listed cargo capacity online. Often it's wrong or it changes as the components change on the RV throughout the model year. Each vehicle is weighed on its way out the door at the factory, so the loading sticker should give you the most accurate information. Remember that water weighs 8 1/3 pounds per gallon, so that 50-gallon water tank weighs over 400 pounds full, and you've got to include that in your cargo capacity. More in a moment, but first, this episode is sponsored by RVMattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. Get a real mattress for your RV instead of the cheap piece of foam that it came with at RVMattress.com by Brooklyn Bedding. They sell real mattresses and all the odd sizes RVs require, like short kings, Olympic queens, and odd bunk sizes, different thicknesses, and more. Their mattresses are toxin-free, they're made in their factory in Arizona, and shipped to you vacuum sealed wherever you are. You just unwrap them and let them expand. They have a 120-night sleep trial, free shipping, and a limited lifetime warranty. But the best part is that the RV Miles community gets 30% off. It's the best deal they ever offer any day of the year with code RV Miles at rvmattress.com/RV Miles. That's rvmattress.com/RV Miles with the code RV Miles at checkout for 30% off. Next up, suspension. What kind of axles and suspension does the RV have? If you're looking at a trailer, coil spring or even full independent suspensions have been an incredibly positive change that has come to the industry in the last few years. Whether you intend to go off road or not, you'll encounter plenty of potholes and washboard roads in your travels, which can shake your RV apart. I've ridden in a trailer with a leaf spring suspension and in a trailer with a coil spring suspension, and the difference is incredible. The basic leaf spring suspension is older than automobiles themselves, and it's fine if you only travel interstates or you just visit local state parks, but better suspension can really make your RV last longer. And upgraded suspensions are far less prone to trailer sway as well. Unfortunately, a lot of RV buyers just don't like to spend the money on something that they can't see. If you can't get a coil spring suspension, look for torsion axles or slip or roller suspensions. They'll improve towing stability, but they don't significantly help with the bumps and bangs. This is one thing that's really worth it in my book, but it's something that you can do as an aftermarket upgrade. Similarly, motorhome suspensions vary dramatically, and they really affect how well a motorhome drives, whether it feels comfortable cornering and in the heavy wind, or does it feel like a big lump of jello that gets pushed around by the road and other vehicles. Gas Class A and C motorhomes are particularly notorious for having poor suspensions. Again, it's something that can be upgraded, but this is an area where you want to look into Facebook groups and forums and see how people rate the handling of a given RV. What is the capacity of the gray, black, and freshwater tanks? Some RVs have generous tanks with well thought out ratios between the sizes. Others seem to just put whatever tank fits in the open space underneath in the chassis. Your tank size needs will depend a bit on how you intend to use them. If you plan to camp without hookups a lot, your most important consideration is going to be your freshwater tank, as the gray and black will usually not fill up before the fresh is empty. But if you intend to primarily use campgrounds that have water hookups but no sewer, like most state parks and national parks, generous gray and black tanks can keep you camping longer without heading to the dump station, even when you're hooked up to water. And remember, bigger RVs don't necessarily have bigger tanks. Now, you should definitely avoid being suckered in by inexpensive add-ons like outdoor speakers and Wi-Fi prep, things that you're better off purchasing on your own. But there are some features that are a bit more difficult to do after the construction phase that really make life in an RV a lot easier. Inverter prep is a good example. If you want to add an inverter to power your regular AC outlets off of batteries, inverter prep saves a lot of hassle. But if you're going to go do a big off-grid electrical upgrade of solar and batteries, it's not quite as important. Same thing with solar prep. If you're going to add a couple of panels to get a little more sun, it's great. But if you're going to go full hog on a major off-grid system, you won't be using that solar prep anyway. It's going to have to be rewired because the wires are too small. Winterization kits that bypass the water heater when it's time to fill the lines with antifreeze are shockingly not standard. They're a must-have in most climates. Look for things like easy access panels to get to water connections. They're often going to need tightening. It's easy to see if an RV has a lot of storage space or not, but can it be opened easily? Or does that underbed storage involve lifting up a massive piece of plywood with no lifts or hinges? Sometimes they just drill a hole in that you're supposed to stick your finger in, and that's the handle. Will it be as easy to lift that bed open and get your clothing out every day with an upgraded, heavier mattress with bedding on it? Can you actually fit full-size plates in any of the cabinets and drawers? One tip when you're shopping is to open up the microwave and pull out the glass plate out of the microwave and use it to test the size of the cabinets for your plates and pans. You'd be shocked at how many RVs don't have a cabinet that can fit a regular size plate in it. Is there enough counter space to set out a toaster or a coffee maker? Can you envision where you will store shoes when people enter? Where will your garbage can go? How about your laundry, your towels, your toilet paper? Those are top items that are pretty much why we all have an RV, to carry that stuff with us, and they don't often have a convenient space. So try to map out in your mind how you will deal with them and where they're going to go. Slides. Slides can drastically change the space inside of an RV, but make sure to look at the unit with all the slides in and make sure you're comfortable with that. Some, especially in motorhomes, will still allow you to access everything. Others are going to block off the bedrooms, the bathrooms, and even the kitchen. That's important if you plan to pull over and hop in the trailer to use the bathroom or to make a sandwich. If you stop on your route at a grocery store, will you have to pull a slide out to put groceries in the fridge? There's this really popular new rear kitchen fifth wheel floor plan that everybody is copying right now, and it's really great opened up. But most of them have zero access to any of the kitchen on a travel day. And for me, I at least need the fridge, the sink, and bathroom access. Slides are a common point of failure too, and whether it's the motors, the alignment, or leaks, multiple slides compound those issues. And they take longer to bring in and out at the campsite. That doesn't mean they should be avoided, just make sure they're built well and that they'll operate properly upon purchase. Know how to maintenance them. They regularly need adjustment, and people never do it. And people damage them by running them for months unmaintenanced. Pay close attention to the slide technology. Hydraulic slides are the most reliable and the most expensive, though they still do have issues. Through the frame rack and pinion slides are common workhorses that have few issues if they're installed correctly and maintained. They're usually going to be your bigger slides. Cable slides used to be terrible, but they've really improved over the last few years. Schwintek and other in-the-wall systems work fine for smaller, lightweight slides, but they should be avoided for heavy, large slides. They're harder to fix as well. Let's talk about electricity. 30 amp RVs can connect to virtually any RV park connection, while 50 amp RVs can run a lot more things, especially multiple air conditioners. You can still use a 50 amp RV in a 30 amp site, but you'll be limited to one air conditioner and not running multiple heating and cooling devices at the same time. So like using a microwave and a hairdryer at the same time. You're not going to be able to do that on 30 amp. 50 amp is actually 100 amps. That's usually not a problem for most people, except when it's very hot. One air conditioner in like a 40-foot fifth wheel usually won't cut it in 90-degree weather. Pay attention to where the outlets are. Do you intend to use your kitchen table as a workspace? Is there an outlet near there? Will your coffee maker or your toaster's power cord reach the outlet that they put in under the upper cabinets? Usually it doesn't. Will you be able to plug your phone in next to your bed? That's a big consideration. Does it have USB ports for you to charge your phone off of the DC battery system? Does it have USB-C ports for most of the modern electronics? Most of those USB-C ports are not going to charge things like your laptop or a portable CPAP machine, anything like that, but they will charge your phone. Make sure they're in convenient places. A lot of times you'll see USB ports in sofas, and they actually don't work off the battery system. They only work when you're plugged into power. So be careful about stuff like that. All right, that's my list of the top things that buyers often overlook. I'd like to know in the comments if you have anything to add or if you have any questions about things that I've talked about in this video. Please leave them down below. If you got something out of this episode, please hit the like button. If you have somebody interested in buying an RV, share this video with them so maybe they can get some tips and pointers as well. Thanks so much for being here. If you want more like this, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Bye, everybody.